to our meeting as well. As of now, we are only missing Trustee Anna De Silva and Trustee Frank DeCosla and Student Trustee Dia. They hopefully will be joining us shortly.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Trustee Frank DeCosla. Alrighty, moving on to our next item, which is item A2, our land acknowledgement. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Associate Director Amro, do you have it actually in front of you? It's not popping up on my screen anymore.
I do not, Mr. Chair, but we'd like to acknowledge that this is the sacred territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and we thank them for being stewards of this land.
Thank you very much, Associate Director Amro. Next, we move on to item A3, which is our opening prayer. If you can all join me on page 3 of our agenda. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. It's our Catholic Education Week prayer. We are many, we are one. We are all from one body in Christ. Lord, when we see the one before us, let us reverence your presence within. When we listen to one another, let us hear with our hearts. When we reflect on each other and each encounter, may we discern to understand. When we learn from those around us, let us respect our differences with joy. And when we act, may we be kind and generous to all. For each person is a member of your body. With all that they are, we are many, we are one. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Next, we move on to item A4, which is our approval of the agenda. Could I get a mover for the approval of the agenda?
Sorry, move, Thomas.
Moved by Trustee Thomas. Do I have any opposed? Seeing none, we move on to our next item, which is item A5, our declarations of interest. Do we have anyone declaring interest this evening? Seeing no declarations of interest, we move on to our next item, which is item A6. The item A6 is the approval of the minutes of the Faith and Program Committee meeting of June 14th, 2022. Could I get a mover?
Stefano.
Moved by Trustee Stefano Piscucci. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We have no pastor's remarks this evening. We have no awards and presentations and no delegations coming forward. We move on to item E1, which is our regular reports coming to trustees for receipt, starting off with item E1A, our Ontario Catholic Trustees Association report. Trustee Hoban or Trustee Razier, do we have any updates?
We do, Mr. Chair. So if I could start. OXA Board of Directors met on Saturday, September 17, 2022. The following are the highlights, and also Trustee Sharon Hoban just sent out the highlights that came from OXA, but I thought we'll emphasize some of them. President Pat Daly recognized and thanked OXA directors who discerned not to seek re-election as Catholic School Board trustee. They are Linda Ainsworth, Frank Bastone, Leslie Cassidy Amadeo, Todd Lalonde, and our very own chair, Sharon Hoban. Since the June provincial election, staff at President Daly have met with a number of Ministry of Education and government officials, including Education Minister Stephen Leche. Real efforts were made to build relationships with newly elected or appointed of their previous positions. During those meetings, OXA have advocated for multi-year and increased funding in support of student learning recovery and well-being. Timely release of Catholic online learning courses as developed by Catholic Virtual Ontario. Immediate repeal of the regulation freezing increases in executive compensation. Lifting of the moratorium freezing school consolidation. Reform of the student transportation grant and action to correct the default public mechanism in the province's assessment system. Conversations on a number of these and other issues have been positive or constructive, with the agreement to continue discussions and explore mutually beneficial solutions. As expected, the urgency in reaching fair, responsible, and central collective free of disruption to students, has come up at a number of meetings. Education sector began. The challenges associated with provincial bargaining have been exacerbated in this round by the financial or compensation expectations of unions, numerous issues flowing from the pandemic, and fiscal constraint on the part of the provincial government. OXA Labor Relations team has been very busy completing 20 days of central bargaining with our union officials. In most cases, central or local terms have been settled and future dates have been established. So great news heading into the school year with respect to e-learning courses at the secondary level. OXA had 35 courses written and 27 are already loaded into the virtual learning environment so that our Catholic students will have course offerings of many Catholic courses to be delivered by Catholic teachers and offered by our school boards. OXA is looking forward to the establishment of the new advisory councils that will begin in January. Draft mandates have been developed for each of those committees. Membership on these committees will be determined after the October trustee election. Our Political Advocacy Committee presented and approved for action the following: Resolution 622, AODA funding; Resolution 722, continue funding for summer special education program; Resolution 922, transportation. If you wish to find out more details on the above resolutions, please do not be happy to provide them to you. OXA Catholic Education Leadership Speaker Series. The first session is scheduled on Monday, September 26 at 6:30 p.m. This presentation will provide an introduction and overview of the Catholic Virtual Ontario initiative led by OXA Director of Education, Anna Bryan. We highly encourage you to register and attend this series to have more in-depth understanding of the Catholic Virtual Ontario. After a 2-year absence, OXA is hosting once again the OXA Short Video Contest for students. This popular annual promotion for Catholic education is open to students in grades 4 to 12 at publicly funded Catholic schools in our province. The theme for this year's contest is the Catholic Education Week theme, We Are Many, We Are One. More information and guidelines are in President Pat Bailey's memo dated August 25, 2022, which would have been forwarded to all our schools. We hope to forward it again before the deadline of December 2022. And lastly, on Tuesday, September 27th, our board area, which includes Toronto Catholic District School Board, Brant, Haldimand, Norfolk, Durham, Halton, Hamilton, Wentworth, Niagara, and York. At this meeting, we will be discussing the new committee structures. We'll provide a high-level update on central bargaining so trustees with conflict can still listen, and we'll also further explore the topic of Catholic identity. As the host board, we really encourage all trustees to join us for this meeting, or even for a portion as your time permits. This concludes our report, and happy to answer any questions you may have. Sharon, do you have any more addition?
First of all, through the chair, I just want to thank Luz. She's so great at putting these reports. She's the scribe for these reports. So thank you to Luz. It's always so great. I just, again, would like two things. Would like to encourage all of you on the 26th to register for the e-learning unveiling, really, for Virtual Ontario. We had so many teachers, administrators work so hard over the summer to write these courses. And because I think, there was the plan going forward by the ministry to present e-learning courses. These are the e-learning courses that the students would have to, every student would have to have at least 2 to graduate. And through the hard work of the president, Pat Daly at OXA, we received the funding from the ministry, as well as ongoing discussions to convince them that we need Catholic courses, that if our students are taking, these, and they have to take these courses, that they should be Catholic. So it really, congratulations to all the teachers, administrators who worked the whole summer to get these ready. And this would be, I would say, for you as a representative trustee in your area, this is something you should really know about and be able to talk about at your council meetings, et cetera, and with even your family of school meetings that are coming up, because this is important for us. This is and we'll continue to have these courses written, but it's important that our Catholic ratepayers and our Catholic parents, school councils know that this is something that we've been able to accomplish and that we're doing for our students. So that's the one thing. And the second is that, again, as Lou said, the regional meeting is being hosted by Dufferin Peel in room 301. Even if you can come by for some of it, the discussions will be very appropriate for all of us to hear. And Dufferin Peel will be doing a report that staff have helped us put together. So I encourage you all, if you can, even for some part of the day, it's the day will be done by 2:30. And it's an excellent opportunity for all of us. So again, thanks to Luz, Mr. Chairman, and again, we'll take any questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Trustee Del Rosario and Trustee Hoban, for that presentation on OXTA. Do we have any questions this evening for the OXTA report? Seeing none, thank you once again for the presentation. Next, we move on to item G1, which is Catholic education. Sorry.
Move the report.
Oversee?
Move the report.
Yes,
Move the
moved by Trustee Thomas. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Next, no problem. Next, we move on to item G1, which is our updates, information reports from administration for receipt. G1 is Catholic Education Week 2023. Before we do this report, could I get a move receipt?
I can.
Moved by Trustee Corbett. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. All right.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy new school year to you all as we begin a brand new school year. This evening's report on Catholic Education Week begins on page 12 of your agenda, and we're very pleased to have Deacon Ray Frendo here, faith animator for the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, who will walk trustees through the report.
Thank you, Mr. Emerald. Good evening, everyone. And through the chair, I'm pleased to report that the annual Catholic Education Week sponsored by the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association is scheduled for Sunday, April the 30th to Friday, May the 5th, 2023. And as we've heard, even in the opening prayer today, and I believe Trustee Luz also referred to it as a theme being, we are many, we are one. And the theme is anchored by the scripture text from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. We who are many are one body in Christ, and individually we are members one of another. And the five sub themes, which were also actually part of the opening prayer today, are when we see, when we listen, when we reflect, when we learn, and when we act. And it is to note that rather than just a one-week celebration, initiatives to highlight and celebrate the theme will encompass the entire school year. And in fact, these initiatives began with the beginning of the school year as first week of school kit resources were shared with all elementary and secondary schools as well. Throughout the year, of course, all resources and educational materials can be found on the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association website. Our own religious education and faith formation department will continue to provide schools with resources as they are developed throughout this school year. Let's continue to celebrate the gift of Catholic education every day. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the report. We'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Deacon Ray. Do we have any questions in regards to this presentation? Trustee Hoban.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank you for this report because it's really great to see this report coming now. and not later in the year, because really the goal is to begin talking about we are many, we are one. And I know the trustees would agree that there are many things that can be talked about in our schools around we are many, we are one. And it is important. I know that when Oxta came up with this theme, that we certainly had those themes in mind, not just one particular theme, but that it's an outreach to cover many themes in our schools. And so, and I'm glad to see that the materials are coming out so early, because now we can really begin to talk about these themes, which are so crucial to Catholic education. So I really want to thank Deacon Ray and his team, and certainly our school chaplains and our teachers and our program department for getting this out so early. So thanks very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments in regards to this presentation? Seeing none, thank you very much for that presentation. We'll be moving on to the next item now. Item G2 is in regards to summer learning opportunities, our 2022 update. Could I get a move receipt for this report?
Adel.
Moved by Trustee Daryl D'Souza. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Associate Director Emerald.
Thank you, Chair Xavier. And this report begins on page 14 of the agenda, and Superintendent Vecchierino will present the report.
Good evening, everyone. I am actually going to be preceded by Superintendent Murphy. I'm presenting the second half of the report.
Thanks, Max. We work as a team, so I will begin. An important aspect of enacting the board's multi-year strategic plan involves engaging all of our learners and our staff in summer learning opportunities. The report this evening is going to summarize the work that we've done this summer. First effort that I want to speak about is Camp Discovery. This is a program supported through CODE, Council of Ontario Directors of Education, and it focuses on literacy and numeracy skills, as do many of our programs, for half of the day. And then the other half of the day focuses on opportunities to develop well-being, advocacy skills, social responsibility, science, character development, and Indigenous learning. 75 of our Dufferin Peel students in kindergarten, year 2 through grade 5 attended this all-day in-person camp held at St. John Fisher Elementary School. And I do want to emphasize the number of in-person opportunities we had, because we know how important that is for our learners. Our summer literacy camp supported approximately 1,050 students in kindergartens to grade 5, with additional focus on literacy and numeracy. And numeracy was a new element for this particular camp, which we've run before. The Ministry of Education's tutoring supports provided the board with an opportunity to reduce class size to enhance and focus on that personalized learning for our students. And they were taught by over 90 teachers and ERWs from that grant. Our elementary summer school supported approximately 290 students with individual education plans in grades 6, 7, and 8. This program had 26 teachers provide personalized learning and lower pupil-teacher ratios to enhance the learning experiences of those students because of additional funding opportunities. In our Leading Change for Youth and Environment experience, Wayako Chige, and I hope Superintendent Vecchierino that I got that right, a collaboration between Riverwood Conservation, the University of Toronto Mississauga campus, and the Upper Grand District School Board immersed our students in learning on the land and our responsibilities with the environment. Students were shown how Indigenous knowledge systems work hand in hand with Western knowledge systems and critically explored solutions to colonialism and the climate crisis in that relationship. Anishinaabe elders and guests from the New Zealand Maori and the American Navajo Nation presented an Anishinaabe understanding of the use of the lands and water, which was enhanced by the location near the Credit River. Our Ready, Set, Read Summer Reading Club is a partnership between the board and our public library systems in Brampton, Orangeville, and Caledon, and it invited our students in kindergarten to grade 3 to weekly read aloud sessions at our libraries. Our students were engaged in a variety of activities designed to foster a love of reading and also enhance their reading skills. Over 200 of our families registered for this event during the 6-week program. Our students received a reading passport, bookmarks, a book tote bag, a book, and a certificate for participation in this event. We also collected feedback from parents because we want to continue to refine this experience for our families. Our settlement workers facilitated the iFun event again at 6 of our secondary schools. 72 of our peer leader volunteers, students, and 6 ESL teachers hosted this event for 122 newcomer students that focused on developing their relationships and connections with their new schools. iFun provided information to our newcomer students about courses, orientations to their secondary schools, and our settlement workers will be hosting a session for their parents. Our very successful Get Ready program provided experiences for over 4,500 of our grade 9 students. And that number and that experience always makes me very proud of Dufferin Peel. It's an in-person experience to orient our new grade 9 students to their new home high schools. We had 262 teachers support this and welcome our new grade 9s in faith, literacy, numeracy, and the all-important orientation activities in their new high school buildings. Our dual credit program ran with our local college partners and focused on our at-risk students, our credit deficient students, and students in our specialist high skills major programs, and also students in our OEAP programs. And this dual credit experience this summer, of course, is to provide our students with an opportunity to earn credits in high school and also earn credits in college programs, because ultimately what we want to see is our students move on to post-secondary experiences in college, and our at-risk students need to know that this is where they can go as well. The programs were offered at Sheridan, Humber, and Seneca. There is a wide variety of courses ranging from construction to psychology to criminal justice. 26 of our students participated and 25 credits were earned in this experience. I will now turn the rest of the report over to my colleague, Max, who will continue to explain the very successful programs we ran this summer.
So good evening again, everyone, and nice to see all of you and nice to be back together in the context of Faith and Program. As underscored by Superintendent Murphy, while we are sharing the presentation of this report together, the programs highlighted reflect the very strong and foundational collaboration between Program and Learning Services, Special Education and Support Services, and the Equity Policy, Strategy and Research Department. We really do work closely together in delivering these programs to ensure that they reflect the priorities that each aims to bring to the center. The Focus on Youth program, which is both highly regarded, as trustees are aware, and very successful in terms of supporting students, saw its 10th anniversary this summer. It continued, as in the past, to support students from within Dufferin Peel on 2 levels. We had some of our older secondary students work as counselors and this summer as tutors in order to support some of our younger elementary age students. This summer, because, as you will hear in the next report, we had some additional funding from the ministry, we were able to realize a long-lived dream in the system, which was to be able to expand this program beyond one secondary school setting. And so we offered the program at Loyola Catholic Secondary School, Notre Dame Catholic Secondary School, and St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Secondary School. We employed 125 students, as mentioned earlier, who supported over 300 of our younger students as campers, if you will. The program, as it has run in the past, provided very strong socio-emotional support provided by a variety of community partners that focused on the arts, social studies, a number of activities with a focus on Indigenous education, all of it based on a strong faith foundation for us as a faith-based system. Because of the additional funding that I just mentioned, we were able to marry or link to this summer's activities a more intentional and deeper literacy and numeracy component. It has always been there, but we were able to go deeper this summer because of the additional funding, and that work was based on the precepts outlined in Ontario's Human Rights Commission Right to Read report. Another item that is not new to our summer offerings was the work that we do with York University every summer in their Faculty of Education. Close to 40 staff members participated in this opportunity at York University, and it worked on helping educators understand how within classrooms they can work for social change and transformation, all of it aimed at raising collective consciousness, understanding power imbalances, disrupting oppressive forces, and cultivating individual and collective agency. Again, as part of funding that we were able to use through the tutoring TPA, which you will hear about a little bit more in the next report, we were able, as a joint set of departments, to support a summer literacy symposium for our educators as well as educational support staff. This event took, which we called a literacy symposium over the summer, was offered to all of our elementary teachers, all of our support staff in the system, as well as our before and after school providers, settlement workers, and childcare providers. Over 320 of our educators participated, and we worked through 20 community partners. The day began with a virtual keynote by Carrie Yates, who focuses on the science of reading, and her text, Shifting the Balance, underscored that work. And that keynote was followed by 22 different breakout sessions to support educators in their own personal interests vis-a-vis science and the reading, vis-a-vis reading and the science of reading. We undertook a summer writing team to develop and deepen the impact of resources which support members of the Black community. The writing team, its title was English with a focus on Black Voices courses. And this work has come out of ongoing learning in this area for us as a system, input from our Black Community Advisory Council, and it is aimed, as I said moments ago, not only to deepen our work, to make it more prevalent across the curriculum and across our schools, and ensure that Black voices are centered, supported, and uplifted. As in the past, we continue to support our secondary specialist high skills majors in the summer through cooperative education, with a view to supporting students in completing their the requirements for their red seals in a variety of areas, which we know are best supported through the summer due to the day-to-day intensity, albeit over a shorter period of time. As always, we also offered secondary summer school throughout the month of July. We had approximately 5,000 students participate in person, with an additional just under 1,100 students participating online. A significant number of students, again, through additional funding that we were able to secure, were supported in receiving accommodations as outlined in their IEPs. About 220 of our educators participated in these programs. We continue to support our adult programs as well over the summer. Our adult programs were mostly online over this past year, but we did support a small number of our adult learners in person as well. Overall, adult and continuing education over this past year and ending in the summer supported the needs of over 12,000 students. The Summer Transition Program was funded by the Ministry of Education for a third year this year, supporting grade 9 students with differing abilities, including special education needs, to participate with their schools communities in transitioning effectively into the secondary system. In particular, the focus of this program, shown at the bottom of page 18 of your agenda and onto the top of page 19, would have included a return to school and skill building and tips, orientation, introductions to staff by role, scheduling, the mechanics of lockers and lunches and busing, as well as having a better understanding of how to access the school in its virtual form and its resources virtually, as well as day-to-day health and safety protocols. We also supported a variety of mental health services through the Summer Mental Health Services and Access line. working jointly with our mental health support workers and staff in our various settings. In total, approximately 150 students received continuous support over the summer, with approximately a little bit more than half being elementary age students. We know that mental health needs are ongoing, but also emergent. And so we work intentionally to support students, not only when these needs are most visible and understood, but even at their emergent level, hence that focus on supporting elementary age students in particular. We supported a camp over the summer for students with autism spectrum, for students who are on the autism spectrum. The camp was called Every Summer Has a Story, based on Ministry of Education grants for tutoring and after-school skills and development. 2 locations were offered this year, St. Matthew and Lester B. Pearson, so one in Mississauga, one in Brampton, where we aligned special education teachers and A&O clinicians to co-instruct the camp with support from education resource workers. Finally, almost finally, Student Mental Health and Wellbeing Champion Summer Program was another focus of the 2022 summer, and a repeat of work that was done in 2021, again, through funding of the Ministry of Education for supporting student mental health. Our staff facilitated a 1-week summer program to engage senior students in mental health and wellbeing, learning about their own mental health, advocacy, and resource development. The goals of the program are shown towards the bottom of page 20: increased knowledge and awareness of mental health, the importance of creating, maintaining, and promoting safe spaces, co-creation of print and social media for students by students, and the production of a welcome video for deaf and PO students to remind them that they're never alone, and to promote their help, to promote their ability to seek help. As was the case in the past as well, we were also able to engage in additional special education assessments over the summer, and the Special Education and Learning Services Department was able to provide an additional 156 students from across the system during July and August, with funding from the ministry in terms of assessment from our psychology staff, internally, and also through external providers. Fully aligned to our multi-year strategic plan, 2019 to 2023, we offered a variety of programs over the summer, from K to well into adulthood, in a hope to support not only programming that takes place over the year, but also programming that we know is best delivered through the summer months. As always, we would be pleased to take any questions with regards to this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I know that we do have a few questions. If you could just keep your hand up. I have Trustee Corbett, Trustee Hoban, Trustee D'Souza, and Trustee DeCosla. Did I miss? Is there anybody else that has a question? Okay, all right. If there's anyone else that has a question, feel free to message me in the chat box. All right, to start off, Trustee Bria Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, and through the chair. So regarding G2, specifically page 16, our Get Ready program. So I've had a lot of feedback from parents of grade 9 students who most recently attended our Get Ready program this year in August when I was outdoor knocking during that week. And it was top of mind. It was very fresh for many families. Unfortunately, and overwhelmingly, I've heard that it was a very disappointing experience for our students. Specifically, I can share some feedback I received. It's boring. It's not fun. 3 days is too long. Teachers just talked to us for 5 hours. We had to do math and reading, but we were treated like we were in elementary school. It feels like we started school a week earlier. It was a waste of time. Would not recommend it to other students. This is not a one school isolated feedback. This is from all three of the secondary schools that I represent in Mississauga North. So this is a program that was initially intended to be a catch-up program for students. And I believe we really have to manage expectations up front. Who is this program targeting? Communicate who this is intended for. It's for a select group of students for the purpose of identifying gaps and learning needs. And because I don't believe every student needs or should attend this. And while it's great that we had over 4,000 students attend, the focus really should be on the students the program is intended to support. Because it's really important we get this right. This, for many families and students, this is their first experience to high school. And it's also during their summer vacation. And we want it to be valuable use of their time. We want it to be a valuable use of the teacher's time. But what the majority of the families and the students want and need is not this. They want an opportunity to get to know their peers. They want to meet the teachers. They want to find the classrooms. They want to get their schedules, their lockers, how do lunches work, clubs. What do I need to graduate? Meet the chaplain. I think some instruction would be good and helpful on, time management skills, how to study, how to prepare for exams. Where can I find resource? Who are my guidance counselors? Meet the student council. I think all of that would be what they need, but that is not what they got. And I can share that students and families, they envisioned something very, very different. It's been 2 years. We haven't had Get Ready program. So when my daughter started grade 9 in 2020 of September, there was no Get Ready program. So there wasn't anything to, we've had a couple of years where we haven't offered this program, and we did without that program. And so if we are going to put time and energy and certainly good use of funds from the ministry in order to do this, we need to get this right. And the students, the families, they envisioned having something entirely different, a pep rally style, like a frosh week, music, excitement, fun games, opportunities to connect. My gosh, after 2 years of pandemic where nobody has been able to see one another and face to face and interact, that's really, really critical. And that did not happen. Like even the games, they were told one of the games was line up from smallest to tallest without talking. This did not need to be 3 days worth of teachers and student time. What they want is an orientation to secondary school and a much better experience than this. And some boards offer that. Some boards offer like a welcome to high school orientation. It's a 1 day. And I think that's something that some of our schools offer as well. And maybe could be somehow integrated with this Get Ready program, or maybe it's on its own. But that would be much better for the general population with a very specific population for the Get Ready. But I heard really positive feedback from the mental health program that was done the week before Get Ready. Lots of good opportunities to connect, lots of good tips on what to do and strategies to cope and reduce stress and anxiety and focus on their own mental health and well-being. So there was lots of good feedback from that program. And those students went to both, so they would have an idea as to compare. But that essentially summarizes the feedback that I got from my school communities. And I've been sharing this with our family of school superintendent as well. So my questions are, how are we going to improve this? We need to improve this for next year. And can we get the data? Like, I would love to see the data, not just total number of students, but I'm really curious to see how many students attended day 1, how many attended day 2, and how many attended day 3. because I'm guessing there's a large number that did not continue for all 3 days. And back in September 2019, I raised this exact same feedback then. I didn't have a child in it then, but I did this time as well. So I experienced this as a trustee as well as a parent. And so I would like again to ask if there is a survey that can be done specifically to grade 9 students, the families, because I think their feedback's really important and critical in terms of improving this going forward for subsequent years. And I don't know if that survey was done before, but I think it really needs to be done now.
So through the chair, thank you for the feedback and for the information. We can definitely take that back and look to see how we can garner some feedback from our grade 9 students and families with respect to the program. Thank you, Trustee Corbett.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Trustee Hoban.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank staff for this comprehensive report. I mean, it's really quite amazing when you think about the summer isn't that long and we've been able to accomplish so much. So, thanks for all of this. Thanks for the hard work. My first question is, I know that we were having some challenges with secondary summer school in terms of getting teachers to teach. Do we know, well, I'm sure we know, how did that all work out? And did we have many students who couldn't get a course because we didn't have a teacher? I'm not sure who can answer this, but.
I can answer through the chair. Good evening, Trustee Hoban. So when the summer started out, we did have some significant challenges in recruiting teachers for summer school. Not in any way presented as an excuse, simply an explanation. We faced similar issues that were faced throughout boards in the GTA. A lot of large employers had trouble, continue to have trouble maintaining staff. So what we did was we did have to cancel 24 classes in the week before the beginning of the summer school program in order to ensure that we were supporting our students who required courses for particular next steps, whatever they might be. We focused on supporting our grade 11 and our grade 12 and our grade 11 students first, and then opened up courses in the lower grades. We worked very, very closely with our coterminous board. Unfortunately, their experience was parallel to ours. Their program is not as large as ours, but it was considerably worse affected than ours. So they were not a lot of help to us, nor we to them in the end. We all did the best that we could within the two streams. What we did try to encourage was for students who were not able to be supported in the summer to be immediately enrolled in our night school courses, which at this point are actually undersubscribed. There is a bit of a shift, I think, in demographics in terms of summer school and night school, and we will continue to look at that throughout the year to ensure that our offerings throughout the year and into the summer are reflective of student needs. What we may do for next summer, and we will have to think about this because there are positives and negatives to it, we could simply offer what we have staff to offer, but that means making our program significantly smaller. And it has not been Dufferin Peel's practice to do that because we try our best to make our registration into summer school as responsive as possible, i.e. allowing students to register up until the last minute. But what that means is that, and this was the only year when it became an issue, we were not able to hire enough teachers for the need that came out of our students' needs. Our coterminous board, for example, it is my understanding, only staff based on what they have teachers interested in, and then they simply stop accepting students. But in some cases, they stop accepting students so early that students who have more last minute needs aren't able to be supported. It's an imperfect balance, which we hope to strike better in this coming year.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, you know, it's it's certainly understandable that we've come through those last few years and teachers are tired and they've had to deal with very difficult circumstances, and maybe they just didn't, want to go forth this summer and teach. So, I mean, it's all perfectly understandable, but it's a challenge for those students. So I'm just glad to hear that we focused as best we could on the 11s and the 12s. So certainly the 12s who needed credits, to graduate, et cetera. So I'm glad we're able to do that. And I know that recruiting was continuing right up to, the last minute. And I think some trustees were able to get the message out and encourage people, because I think in June, it's kind of lost in all the messaging that, there's all these opportunities. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that. My second question is just a clarification on the Focus on Youth program. We talk about that Dufferin Peel is collaborating with a not-for-profit organization. Is that in order to help select the students who are coming to this program?
Through the chair, I can answer that question as well. No, we work with a not-for-profit organization because they develop programming that we as a school board don't have expertise in or the staff for. So the camp portion, if you will, and I don't want to essentialize this to be made up of two exclusive units, that they did work together, but we work with community organizations who support the arts, who support drama and dance among the arts. We had cooking, athletics activities, and those are activities that our staff are not in the position to deliver, especially not over the summer.
Okay. So you weren't teaching dance this summer, Superintendent Baccarino?
No, I was trying to take care of the grade 12 students who needed advanced physics.
I see. Okay. Okay. I was just trying to clarify that in terms of, what the role of the not-for-profit. Okay. So I get that part of it. Okay. And, okay. So my other question, and maybe it's a comment and a question, in terms of facility choices, there's so many programs trying to figure out which program it is. I think it might have indicated a 5 program. In terms of selecting schools for these programs, I did get feedback that maybe there needs to be more communication between the program department or the department that's developing programs and the facilities side of our board in terms of what are the needs and what do we have, because we had classrooms or students assigned to classrooms that, like kindergarten classes, put in computer labs, and it was, I think the lack of understanding on one side of what the needs were, and then and teachers having to deal with lack of the appropriate facilities in order for these students to come to the program. So just some feedback, and that I think it's more of the left hand talking to the right hand, or whatever. And so when they walk in the door, or even when the teachers walk in the door, the school set up the way they need it, that the photocopier is actually working, et cetera, et cetera. So even though we're on summer shutdown, these facilities have to be up and running in order to be able to house these programs. So that's just a feedback that I give to you for future reference. So.
Through you, Chair Xavier. Thank you, Trustee Hopen, for that feedback.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Trustee Daryl D'Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. This summer, in fact, it's pretty similar to the question Trustee Hoban had with regard to summer school. I did experience a significantly high number of calls this summer from students and parents specifically. And Max, thank you for the answer, because you did answer most part of my question, but one specific thing I would like to know is, did we manage to send out communication to students if we were not able to support them in terms of having a teacher to teach them in their schools? Because the calls I received was, we landed up in the school and at the door we were told, hey, you know what, this class is cancelled. And it was not one, I think it was at least 4 students who landed up in schools and they were told the class was cancelled.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond to that question as well. Two-part response. Definitely overall something that we are working on, and I'll explain what our challenges are and what we hope to do about them going forward. As I mentioned in my response to Trustee Hoban, Dufferin Peel tries its best to support as many students as possible, which means we take registrations very late. In some cases, after there have been promotion meetings in our secondary schools, for example, and that's when maybe student needs are realized. But that also means that if we don't have available staff, we end up with classes like we did this summer that are unstaffed. Because we take registration so late, we send out communication about canceled classes even later. Not all students, and this is something that we need to learn more about, and we will do this work over this school year. Not all students are particularly good at checking their Dufferin Peel email accounts. And so that is where we automatically send messaging. But to your point, Trustee D'Souza, not everybody is checking it. And so yes, absolutely, we did have people showing up in schools and either being redirected or being told that their course was canceled. We did try our best to include students in courses that they needed in other centers other than the one that they'd registered for. But in some cases, even that was a challenge. We know that although we did a lot of broad-based communication and specific communication, some students didn't realize that the broad-based communication might apply to them, and those who received individual messages may not necessarily have read them. That is something that we know we need to work on throughout this year to be a little bit more, to try to get that very last minute message to kids at the right time. It is, as I said, an outcome of the way we have up until now supported summer school. We may also have to look to do what we were thinking with the principal of the program is to maybe do a hybrid. Guarantee certain courses over the summer well in advance, and then look at, if we can, we will also offer these and tell you in advance that there's a possibility that you may not be able to get them. That requires some fine tuning that we have not yet done, but we hope to do it in this coming school year.
All right. Thanks, Max, for answering that. I believe, yes, we are trying to offer as many courses as we can. And I don't know which is the right way to do it, whether what our coterminous board is doing. First, you get the teachers to commit, and then you say, you know what, this is what's available. And then rather than ask the students like, okay, apply, and then we'll find someone to teach you those courses. So
through the chair, through the chair, that's a balance that we have tried to strike, and we will try to strike it better next year. This was also somewhat of an unusual year. We have never before met with such a shortage of people willing to teach summer school. That was new to us and quite frankly unexpected. But maybe we can do better at trying to have a better understanding earlier of who we might have on our roster.
Because the biggest complaint I did receive was we had summer schools don't have busing, and these courses are sometimes offered or available at schools which are probably an hour or an hour and a half commute from your place of residence. And these parents and students had to actually travel quite a distance just to be told that, hey, you know what, your course is canceled. And that's what prompted them to end up calling me and being quite rude on the phone. So it was a challenge, and it was quite a number of calls. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Trustee D'Souza. Next, I have Trustee DeCosta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is around where does our PIP students fit into this report?
So through the chair, part of the transition to secondary school, money from the ministry would be an opportunity for students with special needs in a Planning for Independence program to attend school and have an experience as to what Trustee Corbett was speaking about in terms of adapting to the school, to meet the team, to meet the teachers. So those students in grade 9 in particular, or those entering from 9 to year 7 newly, would be supported by that. In terms of other supports, perhaps I can ask Superintendent Papaloni or General Manager Kite if any of the students in Planning for Independence took part in our, I know that there are several students on IEPs that take part in our summer programs for sure, including summer school, and that's a presentation that goes to SEAC every year. But specifically Planning for Independence, I wouldn't be able to comment unless Superintendent Papaloni or General Manager Kite can comment.
Thank you, and good evening. Thank you for the question. Students, regardless of their needs or their placements or their identifications, certainly had access to mental health supports during the summer if they were required. And in many cases for our students in the Planning for Independence program, their families may have needed some additional support over the summer, navigating referrals to community partners. And so we had a number of students who were accessing the summer mental health line, and as well as a number of parents who were engaging with our mental health support workers and our social workers throughout the summer to meet their mental health needs. We also prioritized assessments for students who do require placements in programs over the summer. And so a number of students who would have met criteria for the Planning for Independence programs would have received either summer assessments for their psychological profile, their learning profile, or the speech language assessments as well.
And, and through the chair, sorry, in addition to that, we did have summer transitions specifically for students with high needs. So it was called our summer transition program, and it was specific to students with of differing abilities and with special needs. So this would be the third year that we've offered that program, and it happens, excuse me, my mouth is partially frozen. I went to the dentist, sorry. It has happened for the third year, and it typically happens the week before the transition meetings for secondary school. So they have 1 week where it's just the special needs students, and then they join the other group of students the very last week before school starts.
Great.
So they do have the opportunity to join, yes.
Great. I'm happy to hear that there is some inclusivity in that perspective. But so how about the kids who are in the independent course who are at the high school between grade 10, 11, who are currently in grade 9 to grade 11 or grade 12? Is there anything for them in terms of enriching their program for the summer? I see a lot more. I see a lot for other students, but I don't see the opportunity for them to be in a program, say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to obviously do the same for them as well in terms of enhancing their PIP learning program or something of that nature.
So thank you, Trustee DeCosta, and through you, Chair Xavier. That's something that we can take back as a team to when we are mapping out the summer programs to determine the viability of running a program for students who are particularly in that stream in a Planning for Independence class. Thank you for that feedback.
No problem. Thank you very much for considering that as well.
Thank you very much, Trustee Costa. I have nobody else on the speakers list. Is there anyone else that would like to be at? Yes, okay, Trustee Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Just to loop back to Trustee Daryl's point about timing and the lack of timing, I thought there was indicated on the summer school forms that a student had to indicate their first and their second course choices for the purpose of if the first wasn't available or was full or or wasn't being offered, then at least they could have a second course as a backup. But what I heard from families was that they weren't informed about the course, that it was canceled until the weekend before it started or the morning of when they showed up for school. And then there's no time for them to arrange enrollment into another course. And these courses are really important. They're graduation requirements, they're course upgrades for post-secondary admissions. So I think the timing of it's really critical, because if the students have already allocated, the month of July for their course, and now that's not feasible through our board, they don't even have another option to get that course in August or a later date. It means it needs to be incorporated into the following school year, and for some they don't have that time. So if we can really work on that part of it, that if the course, maybe there needs to be a cutoff deadline as well to let students and families know, so they can, even if it is up in the air in terms of we're not sure if we can offer this course, then maybe by a certain deadline so that they still have time to register for another might be something to consider.
Through you, Chair Xavier, thank you for that feedback, Trustee Corbett. Definitely, thank you.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments in regards to this presentation? Seeing none, thank you very much, both Superintendent Murphy and Superintendent Vaccarino, for that presentation. We move on to our next presentation this evening, which is item G3, which is tutoring supports grants opportunities 2022 update. Associate Director Allen.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Xavier, I believe we need receipt of the report.
Yes, we do. Can I get a move receipt? A move by Trustee DeCosta. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried.
Continuing through you, Chair Xavier, the report is found on page 22 of your agenda package this evening, and Superintendent Vaccarino will start the report.
Thank you, and hello again. As trustees are aware from previous communication, the Ministry of Education has provided all boards in the province with very significant funding through their tutoring supports grant for students. And this grant has been divided by the ministry into two large pockets, if you will. One on which I will be reporting this evening, and that is March through to August of 2022. And the second, which is beginning now, few comments about that at the end of this report, and which will take us up until the end of December 2022. So as I said, the report this evening focuses on work that we were able to put in place up to the end of August of 2022. We offered through this initiative a variety of in-school programs. The first, and I am making my way through the middle and towards the end of page 22, at all of our elementary schools from kindergarten to grade 3, all of our schools received an allotment of vocational teacher days for them to be able to use to release classroom teachers to work with an individual, or more ideally, a small group of students from their own class to provide intervention, direct instruction on reading. The amount of supply time provided or occasional teacher time provided to each school depended on the number of students within that grade level. There was a pre and post assessment, both required by the ministry outlines for the grant, but also by us, because we know that we have to be able to measure to show that our interventions have made a difference. and the direct instruction was provided by classroom teachers, with the release being for the rest of the class, because we know that especially students who are struggling tend to perform better with their classroom teachers where possible. Approximately 3,700 students benefited from that level of intervention. We also offered after-school tutoring from grades 3 to grade 8. Again, all of our elementary schools received an allotment of days based on their size, and they were able to provide 2 90-minute sessions per week for an 8-week period, which was contained within the timelines that I just shared with you. After school tutoring was still small group, but the numbers were greater than for the in-school programming, with a maximum of 15 being in each section. For grades 3 and 6, a portion of each session was allocated specifically to EQAO supports. In other words, how to understand and deconstruct those assessments for student success. In grades 7 and 8, homework assistance was a specific focus. 545 tutors were hired in total for support of approximately 5,900 students. We also provided additional support in grade 9 to 12 after school tutoring, a program that has been in place for many years, but we were able to augment that support through the tutoring grant, so that just under 1,700 students received support. The realities of the very significant conflict in the Ukraine meant that we had a significant influx of students in a variety of our schools, and the tutoring grant allowed us to not only welcome these students, but to provide them with some very intensive support, so that 150 of them who were classified as Step 1 or Step 2 ESL students received additional support in settling into their learning environment, and in not deepening what was already a traumatic learning gap for them. In terms of summer programs, you've heard some, and we had initially thought about bringing one giant report to you, but then realized it might be a little bit unwieldy. But you've already heard about how we were able to use this grant to amplify some programming that we've provided for many years, the Focus on Youth program being one of them. But we were also able to do some additional work. So for example, the summer literacy camp this year benefited from the addition of an afternoon component, and that component incorporated learning that was aimed to support a variety of modalities and intelligences, and students were supported in their leadership development, collaboration work, communication, problem solving, perseverance, and resilience skills as well. Over 700 students benefited from that programming. Love of Literature was also supported by the Tutoring TPA, a community partnership, and just a quick note that working with community partners to a minimum of 15% of the total TPA was a requirement by the ministry. We were able to develop and foster a partnership with the Love of Literature Foundation, and this group provides a safe space for youth to connect with their peers and review, in particular, Black-focused books with appropriate and relatable themes. The program focused, as I said, grades 2 to grade 12, divided into 4 age groups. And through the grant, we were able to support more than 100 of our students being part of it, and a very positive experience to be able to meet Lawrence Hill virtually as part of the program. I've already mentioned some of the programs that we were able to amplify through the tutoring support program. So we mentioned Focus on Youth, for example, but others were supported as well. Some funding went to amplify offerings in Get Ready. We've heard about the Erin Oak Summer Program, Camp Discovery, and Summer Literacy Camp as well. We were also able to support and we tried to ensure that our programming was stratified. So there was a lot of For All, which you would have heard of at the beginning of my presentation, but then we were also able to support some small and localized programming. And so a small portion of the grant, where allowed by the ministry guidelines for its implementation, went to support 3 additional community partners. These included a Ready, Set, Read Skills and Drills Camp, a Ready and Set Read program, a Skills and Drills Camp, as well as an academic program offered by the Divine Academy, to a total of 325 students being supported in these opportunities. We were also able, again, through the grant outline, to purchase some resources, which we have taken receipt of, and our focus there was on culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy. Schools were able to choose from a list of 40 titles. We have received those materials, are in the process of preparing curricular supports for them, and will be disseminating them over this academic school year. We were also able to support students who self-identify as Indigenous, with the provision of coaches who identify as Indigenous to support them. Overall, the program was turned around, if you will, very, very quickly, but I believe that every single one of our elementary schools was able to take advantage of the in-school and after-school tutoring, and all of our secondary schools also benefited from the additional resources provided. The resources will be with us for a long time to come, and as I said, we hope to prepare aligned lessons for those in particular now in the fall, and work through them with every school into the spring. The Ministry of Education, as I noted earlier, has provided an equivalent amount of funding to be spent between September and December of 2022. We will continue, albeit in a fine-tuned way, because obviously we try to learn from what we do and make it better. So we will continue with some of these initiatives into the fall. For example, we learned that in-school tutoring works best if we offer it for kindergarten to grade 2, but that we also offer after-school tutoring in grades 1 to grade 8. So that was shared with principals earlier today. And we will be providing virtual tutoring for students in grade 9 to grade 12. We will, of course, and as always, at the conclusion of the program, bring forward to Faith and Program an outline of the second half of the program. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? I see Trustee Bruno Inica, Trustee Frank DeCosta, Trustee Hoban. That's it as of now. If there's anyone else, feel free to message me on the side. First off, Trustee Bruno Inica.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for my late arrival. I was at other board business at St. Timothy's. Thank you for the report to staff. I guess my question is, I like always to look at the positives, but I always ask about what about the others. After reading the success of the number of approximate students that receive support, 3,700, 1,700, 5,900, and so on and so forth, my question to staff is, were there any kids that could not get the support? There were 37 that we did accommodate and did help, but were there, could that number have been 87 or 47? So I appreciate the report of what we did that was successful, and that's obviously great news, but were there shortfalls in being able to supply the support? And if so, was it significant? Because those would be the ones that were left without. So that would be my question, Mr. Chairman, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond. I'll try to take your question, Trustee Yanika, in order. So every student who was supported by this initiative is a student who would not have been supported otherwise. So based on your question, all of this, because it was additional funding, benefited students who would not have had the support. Were there limitations to our ability to provide it within the parameters that we designed? Yes. Unfortunately, one of the limitations that we bumped into, which we've spoken about earlier in this meeting as well, is the fact that we were not always able to fill the tutor positions because we have experience, like other employers, and as trustees know very well, a difficulty in some schools in securing occasional teachers. I would say that that is the only area where what we planned to do, we weren't able to do because on some days we didn't have teachers to fill the positions. Were there students who were, I believe your words were, left behind? I would like to suggest that that number was actually very close to zero. First of all, we're supporting students who wouldn't have gotten the support otherwise because we had this large grant. And secondly, in supporting some of these students, teachers were freed up in the rest of their time to focus on other students who had needs. This opportunity was available to all students, and unless for whatever personal reason they chose not to participate, which is always a choice that families can make, everybody was welcomed, and we had groups as small as one in the in-school tutoring, and even some of our after-school groupings were quite small, meaning that there was some highly targeted intervention. We did conduct pre and post assessments, as mentioned at the beginning of the report. We are still in the process of deconstructing that data, so I cannot, although we have some data, we have not yet been able to analyze it. Unlike other highly stable data sources that we collect, because this program happened very quickly and was turned around, if you'll pardon that colloquialism, very quickly, it did mean that not all teachers entered data correctly. So we will do our best to clean the data, disaggregate it, and look for trends in terms of our successes and areas for improvement in the future, should we get another grant of this size going forward.
And supplement, Mr. Chairman, if I could, the second part where you had from grade 3 to grade 8, and you know, if I go back on my screen and look at that, but the teachers that were teaching after school, was there a shortage there as well for teachers just saying, I can't, I won't, I don't want to do it, whatever the reason was there a shortage from that perspective as well?
Through the chair, there was only one school to my recollection, and I may be wrong, so I would have to go back, but there was only one school that was not able to use to fully support after school tutoring. Did some schools flag to us that they could not offer as many after school programs as they would have liked for the reasons that you mentioned? Yes, not many. What we were able to do, because we had 2 retired principals working with us on that project, they were able to call those principals and they were able to use maybe the after school teachers from another school to fit in schools that had less teachers. So we tried to make sure that every school ran after school tutoring. As I said, at the very most, one school didn't, and there, if I seem to remember, some exigent circumstances. Not all after school programs were as large as they might have been because we were not always able to staff. I hope that provides a balanced response to the question.
Okay, so for the short is we ran into some staffing issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Next, I have Trustee Frank DeCosta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moving forward to today, does this program still continues, as I see at the bottom on the conclusion, and is it in the same format as prescribed above? So, for example, JK to grade 3, would be the same format?
So through the chair, thank you for the question. There's going to be some minor revisions, Trustee DeCosta. For example, the in-school tutoring is going to be FTK to 2 because feedback from teachers found that indicated that they found that was more effective, but the same sort of parameters are going to be there and the same sort of initiatives will be there. What's exciting for us, and we will be bringing back a report and it's going to be released to the system tomorrow, is a homework help type model of tutoring, online virtual tutoring for secondary students in grades 9 to 12 in the evenings that is subject specific, again, based on availability of staff to hold those tutoring groups. But more information will be provided to the parent community tomorrow, and we have a communication for trustees that's ready to go out before that goes out as well. That's the one major difference, Trustee DeCosta, I would say, is going to be from September to December.
Great. And so we're safe to say from JK right up to grade 12, we have some form of extended tutoring happening for our students.
Through the chair, that's the ministry's expectation, and I'm glad to report that we are compliant with that expectation.
Great. And so the criteria really is still the same for our students as well, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much, then.
Thank you very much, Trustee DaCosta. Is that all?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, I have Trustee Sharon Hoban.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My question to staff is with the FTK grade 3 all school program, what would it have worked? Would it work? This is now, governance trying to get into instructional, which is what we're not supposed to do. But would it work if you had the occasional teachers taking the children out of the classroom and not the classroom teacher, because that leaves then the classroom teacher in her class, his or her class, and not taken out of the class?
So through the chair, thank you for the question. And there was a little bit of thought and intention into that. By having the classroom teacher work with the students who are identified for this group, there's already that relationship between the teacher and the students for 40 minutes twice a week, where the teacher knows the needs of the students and knows what it is that they're doing. But as Superintendent Vecchierino mentioned, this also aligned with resource purchases, and it was a way to build capacity amongst the classroom teachers with respect to those resources. So it was very intentional that it was the classroom teacher that was working with those students, because we all know that's the number one indicator of success for students. So that in itself was intentional, and we found that an occasional teacher who would often be different, we wouldn't be able to maintain consistency of that occasional teacher from session to session throughout the weeks. Would be starting from anew every time they met those students.
Okay, so we couldn't, through the chair, so we couldn't have a occasional teacher assigned to a school to do this. I'm thinking back to, the All-Star Reading Program, for instance, where, I was a volunteer for that. You went into a school X amount of hours a day with very specific students, with instructions from the teacher, with the lesson plan, and you did, it's focused on reading. And that was and then the classroom teacher was able to focus on her classroom, and that child was able to get the extra help. I was just trying to think of ways to not have to take the teacher out of the classroom. So, okay, but I do understand if you can't have the same teacher, it'd be difficult for the student. Yeah. And also, just in terms of, if we go down to the bottom of the report, so the tutoring supports grant administrator, are those the retired principals that you were speaking of, Superintendent
Razier? Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct, Trustee Hoban.
So they really were in charge of the program specifically, like overlooking the program?
So through the chair, there was a senior management kind of check-in almost daily, I want to say, with Superintendent Vecchierino, Superintendent Murphy, myself. But they kind of led the charge, and kudos to them, because the money came at the beginning of April, really. And they had very little time to turn it around, and did an incredible job. And special thanks to our educators across all sectors out there who really embraced this initiative as well. In an era of COVID where everyone just went back to school with no restrictions, teachers saw the benefit of providing these supports for students who required it. So congratulations to the educators out there that really took this charge and moved forward with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everything else that they had to cope with coming back, and then they, took this on as well. So, and I don't believe we heard anything from the ministry around the continuation of funding for these programs as we move into the new year.
Through the chair, the TPA, or the transfer payment agreement, makes reference to the funding ending December 31, 2022. We're hopeful that the ministry will continue with providing school boards with the resources in order to continue with such programs, but as of yet, we haven't heard anything.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Trustee Hoban. I see no other questions. Are there any other questions by trustees? Sorry, I do have Trustee Corbett and I have Trustee Anika on the list now as well. Trustee Corbett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to clarify, so at the bottom of page 23, where we talk about equity and inclusive education initiatives, it says culturally responsive libraries were purchased for each elementary classroom from a list of 40 titles. Are we saying we bought new library resources for every classroom in 125 schools? Is that what we're saying?
So through the chair, we bought resources as part of larger, by libraries there we mean collections. So will every classroom get some culturally responsive pedagogy titles? Yes. We were able to spend a significant amount of our funding on resources. Does that mean that we've outfitted comprehensive libraries in every classroom? Absolutely not.
And as a follow-up through the chair, it would not mean that every elementary classroom got 40 titles in terms of
right.
the library. It would be dispersed amongst the amount of classes proportionally ordered for the school.
Right, thank you, and through the chair. So thank you for clarifying that, because you know there's going to be schools that are saying, we didn't get that. I'm just making sure. Are there electronic versions of these 40 titles that could be shared for classrooms if they don't have like the number of physical books? Like, I'm not sure if that gets into copyright or whatnot, but does the money that we spent, could the money that we spend, not necessarily now, that's already been done, but for future subsequent titles, when we look at revamping, reinvigorating our libraries, are there digital versions? I know we have the Nelson math textbooks are online now and starting to move to more online stuff. Is that an option for us? Is that something we're looking into doing?
Through you, Chair Xavier, electronic options coupled with hard copies or on their own are always top of mind with staff when they're entering the procurement conversation with respect to resources.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Corbett. Next, I have Trustee Bruno Anika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on that response that Associate Director Amaral gave, have the prices of books gone up now with the shortage of paper?
Through the chair, it's not even a matter of shortage of paper. It seems as though the floodgates opened with resources that were very reasonable during the COVID pandemic. But as soon as that was over, the prices seemed to rise generally amongst the publishers.
And from a comparability perspective, how would staff compare a physical book versus, from a cost perspective, an actual book versus an electronic version?
So through the chair, each has their benefits and each has their challenges. To make a sweeping statement to say that one would be more expensive than the other, I don't think would be fair to trustees. I think it's publisher and resource specific in terms of the cost for some licenses for some electronic materials versus the hard copy. But I can say that we're very prudent with the board's resources, and when making fiscal decisions, we do make that not only the decisions that are in the best interest of our students, but also the most fiscally responsible moving forward.
I can honestly say that board staff, the only time they let go of a nickel is to get a better grip. So I appreciate that, and I understand it. In the new year, can staff put a report? I get this question a lot. I don't know about my colleagues, but I get this question about digital textbooks versus physical, because in reality, if there's a change, I mean, you want to talk about history, on an actual book, it's impossible to make a physical change to what's written in there, whether it's, right, wrong, or indifferent. But in a virtual book or an electronic book, it's it's instantaneous. It's downloaded tonight, uploaded tomorrow, and changes in, and those pages are gone. New pages are in. Is it possible in the new year? And I ask my colleagues for indulgence on this, because I get this. I don't know about my colleagues. Like I said, I get this question quite a bit, and I can tell you, if can staff bring a report in the new year? I don't. Doesn't matter if it's February, March, but in the new year to talk about the benefits and the positives and negatives, so that when I'm in front of my constituents, and I'm sure my colleagues are thinking the same thing, or maybe not, then I'll be able to say, well, we did a report on it, and here are the positives, and here are the negatives, and this is why we do this, and this is why we do that. And in order to do exactly, David, what you said, is to get the biggest bang for our dollar and ensure that our kids have everything that they need, and as up to date as possible. Again, in the new year would be, I'm not looking for, I'm just looking for the benefits and not of why we do it that way.
Through you, Chair Xavier, we can make that part of a larger technology report that we bring forward to trustees in terms of how we use resources aligned to technology, certainly.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked, I put my hand up was this original question. With the respect to the tutoring that we just finished talking about, what was the amount of funding that we received? I don't recall it, and I'll be honest with you, I may have skipped over it in the report, but I don't think so, because I looked it over a couple times. And can staff advise?
So continuing through you, Chair Xavier, we received a total of $6.6 million that's divided into two chunks, 3.3 from April to August, and then another 3.3 from September to December.
And the April to August, we utilized 3.3?
Correct. Or as close to 3.3 as we could through the chair with the parameters and limitations that we were presented with.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you to staff for the report and the responses.
Thank you very much, Trustee Ainika. I see Trustee DaCosta's hand up. That's for a question. Yeah.
Yes, I have one more question.
Sure.
Oh,
Trustee Frank DaCosta.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on in reference to what Bruno was asking, and I'm not sure if I missed it, have we received the same amount of money from September onward?
Through the chair, that's correct. In a shorter amount of time, arguably. So it was March, April to the end of August was the first installment, and now it's September to December.
Of 3 million as well.
3.3. Yes.
3.3. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Is that all, Trustee DaCosta?
That's all. Yes, that's all. Thank you. I'll put my hand down.
Yeah. All righty. Do we have any other questions from trustees towards this report? Seeing no questions, all righty. We are complete for item G. We have no trustee committee administration reports requiring action this evening. We have no notices of motion, no additional business. We move on to item K, which is questions asked of and by board members. As of now, I have Trustee Bruno Ainika. If there's anyone else, feel free to message me on the side. Trustee DaCosta, I have you as well. Trustee Bruno Ainika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every time I go to a school for whatever function it is, whether it's a council meeting, whether it's open house, regardless of what it is, there's always something that, I look at and I go, yeah, that's not right. Let me have a look. Let me have a conversation with staff. I have never been more compelled to raise this issue, and I don't think it's anybody's fault. So I'm not looking to blame anybody. What I'm looking for is help. I had a conversation. Actually, it was a phone conversation where the young lady sister, it was a Ukrainian family that came from Ukraine, and the one daughter The mother wanted both children to be in the same school, but one child is grade 9 age and the other one is grade 7. The grade 9 age student is in school, is in one of the secondary schools that I represent with another trustee. The sister is challenged. She learns differently. The sister, the challenged sister, kept asking her other sister to ask when she could go to school. If I could say she asked once, maybe it wouldn't have impacted me as much. She asked 3 times. And they're waiting on paperwork. And I get that we have to do what we have to do. Is there any way that we can help this child get into school and move forward with moving on with not only with their life, not only do they have to get accustomed to a new language, new customs, I mean, all kinds of things that people have to get used to when they leave their country and go to a different one. But this mother has to deal with a daughter that's in secondary school, which is fine, but a daughter that is at home that wants to go to school.
So through you, Xavier, can I ask Trustee Anika that you reach out to the area superintendent to have that conversation, and we'll see what we can do?
I will most certainly do that. And the superintendent will definitely hear. Thank you so much.
I'm sure the superintendent will be in touch with me as well. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Next, I have Trustee Frank DeCosta. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is in reference to our PIP students and our efforts in attempting to engage them in the community when they finish high school. And what efforts or processes or programs do we have in place for securing that we do our best to have that happen?
So through the chair, perhaps I can begin, and then Superintendent Pepaloni and General Manager Kite can chime in if I missed anything. Thank you for the question. It's always something that's top of mind with us. We're required by a PPM actually to engage in transition planning for students with special needs, for all students, but particularly students who learn differently or with diverse learning needs. And I can say there's been a concerted effort, I want to say over the past 4 or 5 years, to develop a resource for parents that kind of walks them through what the 7 years are going to look like in secondary school, with an aim to full integration into the community, or at least garnering community supports. Transition planning for students begins in grade 7, typically. That's when we start having conversations with parents about what pathways can look like. But this resource that's being provided to parents, and I think Superintendent Pepaloni, it's being rolled out next week or shortly after that, for this year's roster or cohort, is really comprehensive in terms of providing parents with supports and pathways and information as to how to access all of the community supports, the DOA, all of those things that students will need upon graduation. So again, there are individual conversations that happen throughout a student's time with us, and they typically begin in grade 7. But that resource is a new one over the past couple of years that we will be rolling out with this year's cohort as well soon. I don't know, Lucy or Christiane, if I missed anything.
That would be accurate through the chair, Mr. Amaral. In addition to that, we are engaging in a pilot project as well, and more information to come. We're just meeting with the ministry tomorrow, and the pilot project is specific around supports and transitions for students leaving secondary school and going into the community with differing abilities.
Great. And that resource that we were talking about, or David was talking about, is there a name to that resource?
The name escapes me right now, but perhaps the ones who deal with it more intimately on a daily basis. I'm sorry, Trustee DeCosta, I can't remember. We can put it in issues and events though, and give a high level kind of summary of what's included in it.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very
That's
much.
all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee DeCosta. Next, I have Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought there was other trustees running me, so thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman, staff, a number of parents have called me up, and I'm sure I'll hear a lot of parents ask the exact same question when I'm making my rounds at the schools. Where are we standing with overnight trips for our students, especially the ones in grade 8s or grade 7? Are we reopening any, I guess the committee to look at overseas trips? What's going on with that? Because I know I asked that question back, I think it was in August, if I remember correctly, and haven't seen anything. I just wondering if I can get an update.
So through you, Chair Xavier, thank you for the question, Trustee Pascucci. As an update, we just concluded with our procurement process, and the tender has been awarded to new contractors and vendors in terms of overnight excursions. To that end, we will be contemplating approving grade 7 and 8 trips within Canada, of course, if they meet the requirements of our policies and procedures. And through Superintendent Goss and her community with overseas excursions, we also are going to be accepting applications for presentations with respect to overseas excursions, notwithstanding the difficulty that some parts of the world are facing. And so obviously those overseas excursions will be approved by staff and brought to trustees with the greatest deal of scrutiny with respect to student safety. But we are opening the conversation for them again. I hope that helps.
Oh, it does. Thank you. Appreciate it. And as I said, I'm sure the trustees will be getting the questions as well whenever they're making their rounds at the schools. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Associate Director.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Trustee Pascucci. Next, I have Trustee Luz del Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Trustee Del Rosario, you're kind of getting cut off.
Hello?
It's lagging a bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
I know it is. And even for all of you speaking, I find it lagging. So is it clear now?
It was, and then now it's actually a little bit lagging.
Okay.
If you'd like to message.
Can you hear me? No?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll skip my question.
If you'd like, you can message me on the side, Trustee Del Rosario, and I can.
Okay, so yeah, I will just message you.
All right.
It's okay. Skip the question. I'll ask it next time.
All righty, perfect. Do we have any other questions by trustees? Seeing no questions, we move on to the next item. We have no declared interest items this evening. Next, we're moving into our in-camera session. Associate Director Amram. Oh,
so good evening, and through you,
sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if just a point of clarification, if we go into in camera and Trustee Del Rosario has a question, can she ask it in open session when we come back?
Through the chair, no, there would be no questions that would, if I may, there would be no questions that could be asked when we got back. That portion of the agenda is over.
Okay, so because she was told to put it in the chat, right? And we told her
No,
to do that.
she had mentioned that she will ask it another time.
Oh, okay.
Meeting.
All right.
That's what I heard. I can.
Okay, just checking. All right. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem. All righty. Trustee, did you have something? You put your hand up? No? Okay. Trustee Associate Director Amro.
So through you, Chair Xavier, we need a motion to move in camera. I'm not quite sure if we got that yet.
Perfect. And I'm assuming that's what's moved by Trustee D'Souza. So moved by Trustee D'Souza. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
So what's going to happen is that trustees or anyone who's eligible to go in camera will be receiving an invite My fingers are crossed for this. And the live stream will continue on YouTube for the public with a screen that says that we are in camera. So for the public who are watching, you can wait until we do come back from in camera into open session. And so trustees, you'll get an invite into the in-camera room. Everyone else can either stay in this meeting or watch us on YouTube. Here goes nothing.
That's exactly what's happening right now. No?
Do we have everybody back?
This feels like some kind of Star Wars thing.
Mr. Chair, I believe we are back in public session now with everyone here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. And moving to item N, a report from our in-camera session. We just approved our minutes. Could I get move receipt? Moved by trustee Enyika. Any opposed? Seeing none. Our next meeting is on October 11th. And that being said, could I get a mover for adjournment?
So move to adjourn.
Moved by trustee DaCosta. Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Good night, everyone.